And good afternoon, and welcome back to episode 10. I can't believe I'm saying this. Episode 10 of Beyond the Devastation. I am your host, John Perez. Today, we have our guest that was here before, but we wanted to get more information and get to the root of some of the situations that we don't really talk about because we just don't want to talk about it. So today, I've asked Allie Harris to come back and talk to us about the root of the problem, the root of the situation. The thing that we don't want to talk about. Look, I want to envision this way. You've got a root canal that needs to be done, and you got to get to the root of it. You got to extract the root so you don't have any more pain. So today, she's going to play dentist. We're going to expose the tooth. We're going to take what we need to get in, remove. You ever been to the dentist? I have. Remove, like they do. They twist that thing out and they take the nerve out. And then they seal it, and they close it back up, but there's no root there anymore. So guess what? You can drink coffee. You can have hot, cold. You can put whatever you want. The tooth is dead. And if the tooth is dead, it doesn't feel anything. So how do we get to that point when we're dealing with mental illness and mental health and mental trauma? Well, I brought an expert. And I'm going to have her talk about it from her perspective because she deals with it every day. All I wanted to do was be the conduit that we can talk about it. So without further ado, my friend, Miss Allie Harris, with all those letters after her name, because it's an alphabet. But I'm going to have her explain what the alphabet is, and then we're going to tee it up. How do we get to the root of it? Miss Allie.
Well, that was an amazing analogy. Trying to get better.
Segue.
Yes, that was awesome. A great segue to our discussion today. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I only have the 4 letters today. But wow, yes, that was an amazing analogy to get to our discussion with regards to getting to the root of the problem with mental health and mental illness, specifically in the Black church. That's what we're hitting for right today. Getting to the root of the problem. So we talked a little bit last time about our failure, resistance, hesitance to talk about mental health, right? And where that could possibly come from, some linkages to that. And definitely has a lot to do with lack of information, lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, fear, right? Plays its part in that which I do not understand or know, I stay away from. I choose the path of least resistance. I'm comfortable talking about scripture and the word of God. So that's the side I stay on, right? So it definitely has a lot to do with that. But I mean, think about the root of the Black church, right? Its origin, its beginnings, its purpose for development design, going way back even to slavery times, right? Let's talk about that and how the Black church at that time was our only place, our safe haven. It was the place where the slaves went, and it was only one of the only places where they had a little bit of control, right? They had a little bit of ability to take back something that they could control, right? So this was their place of emptying, their place of rehabilitation, their place of restoration. They came to get healed, right? For all of the hurt and all of the challenges that they had to face every day. So to the point where they created songs and ways to communicate with one another despite being watched by the slave masters while worshiping, right? So that alone talks about the trauma that's all wrapped and embedded in our worship experience, right? It's a part of us, the trauma, the traumatic experiences. It's embedded in us even from the beginnings of our worship experience. It's there, right? And then us living our lives as a part of the Black and Brown community. Of course, we cannot deny the part that that plays and right in our everyday experiences. And again, we bring that into our worship experience. So trauma is definitely a huge part. It is, as you said, Pastor John, it is the root, right? It definitely is what needs to be pulled out, yanked out, treated, attended to in order for us to navigate life minus every life stressor triggering or causing pain, causing discomfort, right? And that's definitely a part of it. How do we address our trauma? How do we identify our trauma? How do we go back and kind of figure out what trauma is and if I've experienced any? I think one fourth Saturday we talked a lot about an ACEs score and the ACEs study. Dr. Perez, Paula Perez talked a lot about that, and that's a huge, insightful tool for us to utilize to determine if we've been exposed to trauma of some sort. Because my finding is that in our community, I often find when I'm doing assessments, I would say a very close-ended question like, have you experienced trauma? Close-ended, right? And the automatic answer often is nope. But then when I open it up, break it apart a little bit, and I say, well, did you grow up in a community where there was violence around? Or did your parents live together throughout your entire development? Did they get divorced? Or, did you ever see anybody have a fight? Did you ever see anybody get beat up in your neighborhood? Was there shootings or violence? And when I start to break that thing apart and ask questions in different ways, we are traumatized and we don't know it. We've experienced trauma and we're unaware of it. We don't call it, we don't name it trauma. So if we don't name it, how do we attend to it?
So Allie, so what are they, I guess for a better word, not lack of a better term, how are they classifying it then? How do they classify that?
Normal.
If it's not trauma, what is it?
It's normalized. It's just a part of how we grew.
Dysfunctionality is become normal.
It's become normal. Dysfunctionality has become a normal part of our community, our development, our being, our existence. It's normalized. So to the point where, yeah.
So that's that's crazy. It just so basically within our Black and Brown community, we have now normalized trauma because it's a part of our everyday.
It's so often a part of our experience.
So I
doesn't it hurt? It hurts to hear.
It hurts because we walk in this stuff every day. It's like walking in the pig pen. If you walk in the pig pen long enough, you just think it's normal, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a pig pen long enough, it's normal. But the problem is that if we've normalized it, then we're bringing that normalization to the church, right?
So now everywhere we go.
Right. So now we've carried the ball, right? So we're in our homes and it's normal. Yelling, screaming, expletives beyond where we want it to be our kids to hear, right? You name it, they're hearing it. Then they're hearing it on TV and they're seeing it there. It's normalized, right? And then we get that show like that YouTube that went out, Linda, talking back to your mother. I wouldn't have any teeth, but that's another conversation for another day.
Right.
But we've normalized trauma. And then we bring, so now as a pastor, we're bringing it into the church. Oh yeah, you're arguing with your husband and oh yeah, that's normal. You're yelling and screaming and throwing knives. Yeah, that's normal. You got arrested. That's normal.
Rough marriage.
It's normal.
Happens.
But it's not the design that it was ever made to be. So how in your practice, how do we show them that it's what normal is? I mean, I guess that's a big question. How do we show them what normal should be?
Yeah, that's a great question, and definitely is a lot of my work. It's walking through. I take an individual and walk them through the stages of development, right, from infancy through childhood and all of the stages thereafter, and I talk about those stages of development and what is scheduled to happen during those stages that nurtures and helps and allows us to develop appropriately and healthily, right? And then I talk about Likewise, what happens when trauma experiences occur during those stages of development, and give them comparison purposes, right? Normal is such a hard word because everyone's experiences and
Right.
processes are so different, one culture to another, right? But typical, let's say typical. What's typically um, scheduled to happen or typically expected to happen during the stages of development. And typically, right, typically a mother and a father have a child together, typically, and they rear that child in love, right? And that child develops healthy attachments. If they cry, someone attends to that cry. If they're wet, someone comes to see. If they're hungry, right? Typically, these are things that happen, right? And then I'll take that same individual and walk them through an experience where they have possibly have been neglect, right? Or an unhealthy attachment where I cried and no one came. I was wet and no one changed me. I was wet, no one fed me. I was hungry, no one fed me. That types of thing. And then the response that is developed, whether it be positive or negative, right? So I walk them through those stages, whether from all levels, all stages of development, to help them develop some insight, some awareness, right? Because they have to develop this insight, this awareness, this acceptance, this acknowledgement that this was, in fact, typical versus atypical,
S-
normal versus
Versus no.
abnormal.
So let me ask you a question. So this is the question that I see a lot. Um, if you've got husband, let's call him Steve. You got wife, call her Mary.
Yeah.
If they were not raised in a typical environment and now they have a child, this is what I see. So they just
Yeah.
repeat what they lived.
Yes. Yes. That's what we often refer to as generational curses, right? Generational curses. I pass down that which I've experienced and that which I've neglected to heal. So it goes from one generation to another. My new thing is, let's pass down generational healing, generational blessings,
And that's
because
great.
the only way I can help my children to be better is if I first stop and help myself to be better. I have to look into myself and first acknowledge that I've experienced trauma, right? I have to accept that, acknowledge it, work through it, heal from it,
Right.
and then make sure that I am now depositing healthy nuggets into my children.
And if you're taking notes, if you're taking notes, let me just give you a couple quick things here. You just heard that there are stages that we should be developmental stages that we should go through, right? And typical, we're not going to say normal, but let's say typical in an environment. But now each environment will then take that typical and maybe run it either way, right?
Right.
Because depending on what your typical is. But if your typical was that your mom beat you half to death, the minute that you see your child do the same thing, you're probably going to react in the same form or fashion, which will then continue this generational issue that she just talked about. Whether you want to call it an issue, curse, or whatever, it's still a problem.
Right.
So now what she's saying is that let's change it. Let's let's put the mask on ourselves first. Let's examine ourselves why we get angry,
Yeah.
why we are so, we're talking about getting to the root, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about extracting the nerve. So we put the mask on and now we start breathing in better air than it was on the outside.
Yeah.
Now we look around saying, I am messed up. So in order to stop it, this is where I'm going to ask Allie now to now go further. We've got the mask on our adults, right? That are raising these babies that are going to be future adults. What's the first step they've got to do to acknowledge that they've had trauma?
Yeah. So it's like I just previously stated, it's recognizing that some of our experiences were atypical, right? And it doesn't take away from the love that our mothers and fathers had for us, right? It doesn't throw a slam or a dart at them in a negative sense, because I often say our parents gave us the best of what they had, right? Good, bad, right, wrong, or indifferent. They gave us the best of what they had, because a lot of our parents weren't healed and well and whole if we're honest with ourselves, right?
So
They
true.
experienced trauma, they experienced life, and they gave us the best of what they had. But the best of what they had wasn't necessarily the best of the best, right? So you have to examine yourself and identify, and this is something I do myself and I've done, identify what of my mother I want and what of my mother I don't necessarily want because it's not good. It hasn't yielded me good return. It's not something I want to give to Jada and Jalen, right? So what about that? And it again, it does not have any negative connotation attached to it. It's identifying my pros and cons. There's parts of her I want, no doubt about it. But then there are pieces of her that she's deposited in me that I'm like, nah, not at this stage in my life. It doesn't really work for me. It's not fruitful to my wellness. So I reject it. That which was good and it adds value to my wellness, I hold dear. And that which does not add value, I reject. I don't want it to be a part of me. So this is, I think we often find ourselves, and you'll hear this a lot, Pastor John, that's just the way I am. That's who I am. But is
Yeah.
that true? No, we're ever changing, ever experiencing, ever learning. So we have ever opportunity to develop and redefine who we are and who we want to be, right? That's why my private practice is becoming a better me because we have that great gift of steadily working on ourselves and steadily defining who we want to be. And that has a lot to do with how we are attending to our mental health. I got to identify my positive, my negative, my good, my bad, my triggers, right? You said, Pastor John, people that get angry. Why do I get angry? It's not just a part of who I am. It's not just a part of my personality. No, it's an emotion. I'm responding to a thought. I'm responding to a trigger. I'm responding to something that I don't know how to appropriately respond to emotionally. Anger is an easier emotion that I've learned to embrace because vulnerability or hurt, I haven't yet learned to embrace, right? So those are things to think about as we examine ourselves. What is this? What makes Alacia, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's the first stop. Checking yourself out, checking in with self, examining yourself. But the only way to do that is if I spend time with self. I got to get to know me. I got to be able to journal and spend quiet time, listen to my thoughts and acknowledge. Sometimes I need somebody else to help me to do that.
And that's a great point. So think about the couples that we've counseled for marriage. I think about sometimes they don't even know who they are. Individually, as an individual person, right?
Yeah.
They don't even know, they have no idea who they are. And so that's one thing. Two, I love what you said about your mom or any dad. Let me take the good things.
Yeah.
You know, like for example, my mom was a great provider. She was a single mom. My mom had a tremendous work ethic, right? That all of the four of us have embraced, right? But my mom was a disciplinarian like times 20, right? But then when we found out, when I asked her the question, she was like, well, my mom did the same. So she carried forward how, and she said, well, I didn't turn out that bad. Well, in your eyes, correct. But in the typical, it wasn't. So these are the things we can say, you know, I don't want that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep this. I'm going to put this in the good pile. I'm going to take that. I'm going to extract that. You know, and I know that it's in me, but what can I do to clean that part of me out? And I think it's talking to somebody like yourself, reading a book, and looking yourself in the mirror saying, am I like my mom? And not being afraid of hearing the answer within yourself saying, I am. Right. And I want to be a better John or a better Mary. How do I get there? I think that's really having that hard conversation. You know, we're doing a piece on our Tuesday nights was written by Chip Ingram. It's called Overcoming the Emotions That Destroy. And we're talking, anger is a big central theme of it. And getting to like we said, today was about getting to the root of anger. Mm-hmm. Well, look, I know the root of my anger was the trauma that I experienced as a child, the abuse that I had at the hand of a family member. And all of that trauma led up to where I was till I finally identified what it was. And I think that's the hard part. Like you said, look, an uncle or a brother touching somebody that's a female, that is not normal.
No.
And I think we got to accept that is not, that's not normal. That's not normal. I don't care what family. Look, people go to jail for that stuff, right?
Yes.
The abuse of a child, there's so many laws out there. Beating a child to their unconscious is not normal.
Not normal.
But then where I think we have to do as a better job is not accepting that normal in the church. Because if a pastor comes across the pulpit and starts firing across, and he's angry, he's venomous, well, how does that affect everybody there? It's those little things, So I think, Allie, to me, the big takeaway today is, how do we look at the things that mom and dad have deposited in us and then separate? Look, I'll use this analogy. I'm analogy today king, I guess. But think about when you do your laundry. Do you put the reds and the blacks and all in one pile?
That's right. That's a
You
good
don't.
analogy.
You do what? You separate them. Because why? They run, right? So sometimes what'll happen is that if we put them all in one, try to wash them all, you're going to come out with, so let's say a white shirt happened to get into the red and the black. What's going to happen? You got a jacked up shirt.
Jacked up shirt.
But if you took the time to separate, the browns and the reds go over here. The blacks are over here. The colors are over here, right? Now, you don't put bleach in with, color safe bleach, but these are the things that we got to do in our own life.
Yeah. And again, I'd say, because I think it's a strong reminding that needs to happen. It does not add any negative connotation or any negative anything to your parents. It does not say anything bad about your parents, knowing that there are pieces of them that you don't want. It may not work for you in your house, you and your marriage, you and your career, you and your right now, right? What worked 60 years ago just may not work right now, right? So it does not have anything negative. It doesn't say anything negative about our parents. Because I think a lot of people struggle with that piece of it because they feel like it's doing a disservice, or it's a tear down, or it's a negative attack to their parents to say, I don't want to be like my mom, or I don't want to be like my dad. But it's not. It's not. It's recognizing that I want to be my own person. I want to, like my husband and I, we have this thing where we create our own traditions. We want to be, real cognizant about creating our own traditions in our household, not just carrying down from one generation traditions that were given to us, but creating our own tradition. So that's the same when it comes to our wellness. I want to create my own rules for my wellness that are just mine, that help me to be Alicia at the best version that I want to be.
Think of it this. I'll put it this way. My mom handed down recipes of how to make rice and beans to my sisters.
Okay.
But over the years, they've tweaked it their own way.
Right.
They've made it their own signature dish, right?
Yes.
But they took what mom gave them, said, I don't like this, and I put that. To me, that's what you're describing, right?
Yes.
So
I took transition that thought over into our wellness.
Right. Yeah. I took this recipe that mom gave me. It's a great recipe. I can hand it down to my kids, right? But I took what mom gave me. She gave me the foundation, the stock, right? All of that stuff. But you know what? When I experimented and I added this and I took out that, and I got a great response. Right. So if we do the same in our own wellness, mom gave me a great work ethic, but disciplinary wise, mom was really that was not her strong suit. Right. And I think if we look at it that way, she was really good here. And like I said, it's not bad that we're taking away. It doesn't dishonor their legacy. It doesn't dishonor who they are as mom and dad. What it does, it makes us better, because our parents always, their whole goal was to make us better than where they were.
That's right.
Not that we should not be cloning and look the same, because that's what we're doing. If we end up beating the daylights out of our kids and our parents, then all we've done is replicate what our parents did. No, our job is to be here. That's what our parents would want us to be. And I think, Alicia, I think you hit it on the head. I think, to me, this is to get to the root of it. We got to look in the mirror,
right?
Have the hard conversation. If you need help, I've been saying this for 10 episodes. I'm going to say it until I stop. Get help.
Right. Ask that question. Have I experienced trauma?
Have I experienced trauma? And I think that, look, picture this. You're at a restaurant and you're with your girlfriends and you're sitting and having a conversation. And a conversation comes up about your family life. And you mention something to you that's normal. But then watch the reaction on everybody else's face.
Yeah.
You will know then that you did what? You'll know pretty quick that it wasn't typical.
Yeah.
And then you can, oh, Alicia, you experienced that? Oh, my God. Well, no, it was okay. No, it's not okay.
No.
And then you'll really know. That's kind of the litmus test. You want to float the balloon? Talk to your life about to somebody else.
That's right.
And see, exchange experiences. And you'll find out pretty quick whether or not now, and it could be, and it's also going to be the other way, Alicia. I think that you did what?
Right. Absolutely. Where you're like, whoa, okay.
Right. And I think these are great ways to find that, that accountability buddy.
That's right. Not judgmental. It's free of judgment. Right?
Judgment-free zone.
It helps when you both know that this is the exercise we're participating in. That helps.
This is not a setup or a blind. We're not trying to blind you. But these are great. Look, you want to get to the root. I think that, look, I would have you go back and replay those segments where she talked about it. I think I'll give you my elevator speech right here for leaders. Leaders, I think that we have to understand that people are broken. And I think leaders are broken. We just haven't acknowledged it. Look, I was broken and I'm still getting repaired and I'm still getting help and I'm still acknowledging that I need to get better. But I made a promise and a commitment to myself that I wanted to be a better husband and a better father. And I wanted to get rid of the root.
Yeah.
So I went to the dentist. But now the root is gone. But now I got to retrain myself how to eat on that side because I had been avoiding that side for all of these years.
Yeah.
Now I'm relearning, but I want to learn. So leaders, let's really look at this. When somebody comes in and says they have a problem, let's just not say, go pray in the corner and fast. No, we're doing them a disservice. And it breaks my heart, Alicia, that we need to do better training of our leaders to acknowledge and recognize when there is a problem. But sometimes I find that leaders can't do it because what they see is typical.
Right.
That's the scary part for me.
Yeah. They
see typical. Oh, that happened in my house. I don't care. It's not normal. Right. So before we close out, please give everybody where they can buy your book. Because if they see it it's in the far shot of her thing. It's hidden. She's got it framed. But tell them where they can find your book.
Sure. It's available on Amazon. Also at my website, www.aliciasmithharris.com.
So buy the book, get the book, read the book, share the book. That's my only ask today. That is my big plug. Buy it, read it, share it. And if you want, buy an extra copy for Christmas for somebody else.
It's a good time. Yeah.
It's a great time to buy something. You want a Christmas gift for somebody who's struggling? Buy Hidden.
Yeah, it's good.
And go to their website. Give it to us one more time.
www.aliciasmithharris.com.
So that is my recommendation. So here, I'm going to put this here. If you want a great Christmas gift, buy her book and put it under the tree. So, and I would recommend it highly. So I would say, look, we've read it here. We've studied it. And I would recommend that you go out and grab it. So thank you so much, Alicia Harris, for being a guest for episode 10, getting beyond the root of the problem. Thank you. And God bless. See you next week for episode 11. And let's play our music and we're out.